Hi there, thanks for coming along to my YouTube channel today. In this short video today that I'm recording, I'm going to show you how to kind of approach, tackle, prepare for a travel sketchbook. I think summer is the kind of time of year when we're more likely to take a trip or a holiday, maybe travel to see some friends or family, and perhaps have more days out if we've got some time off work, or we're looking after children through the holiday, or just having a little bit of time to ourselves. The summer seems a nice season to kind of do a little bit of mindful journaling or sketchbooking, or just have a little bit of time creatively in a sketchbook for yourself. So today I'm going to cover how you can work in a sketchbook, shop bought ones and homemade ones, what to do before you go, what to take with you, and what to do when you're there. So it's just a short video, but hopefully it'll give you some little tips or maybe inspire you to keep a summer journal for yourself. So to get started, if you're planning on keeping a sketchbook this summer, or any season of the year really, but if you're, say, travelling and you're going to go somewhere in particular and you want to take a sketchbook with you, it's a good idea to kind of prepare some things in it before you go. So you just take like a small travel kit with you, and I'll go through that further on in the video. But the first thing you need to decide if you're going to take a book with you on a trip or on a holiday is which book you're going to use. So I've got a mixture of shop bought books and handmade books here. Not this one isn't handmade by me, but I will share the link of the artist who makes those. And there is no right or wrong way really there's no right or wrong book to work, and it's entirely up to you. Some people prefer the uniformity of a shop bought book. I like to use ones that don't necessarily have spiral binds in them if I'm out and about. Spiral bound sketchbooks are really good, I think, when I want to take pages out of a book and sew in them and then put them back in. But if I'm out and about, I just kind of like something where I can work straight across the spine and there's nothing in the way there. So I tend to choose books like that. That's another little shop bought book. This is really, really tiny but really cute. You can see it's sort of just twice the width of my hand, but really sweet little book. And I've just started doing really quick 10-20 second landscape sketches in there, which I'll cover shortly as well, but the things you can sort of record in your books. But they're shop bought books. This one was bought from a local artist who makes books, and she binds them beautifully. Again, this was for when I was out and about. I think this was the summer after lockdown. So I will go through these in a little bit more depth later on. But it's got a mixture of papers in it, so it's not just white papers. There's bits of map in there, there's little bits of purple in there, and sort of different weights of paper as well, and lovely quality white paper that takes paint really well. And then the other thing I've got is a little handmade book that is made with what I call a junk journal. So it's got a cereal box cover and it's got lots of different papers in it, ready to work on. Some bits are done for a sort of online journaling group, but this one wasn't really filled. So it's a nice one to show you what they look like, what a junk journal would look like before it's been journaled in, if you like. So lots of different papers there. And I'm going to very quickly show you how you can put the most simplest of sketchbooks together using found papers from the house just now. But the nice thing about these journals is if a white page puts you off, so if say you open up a shop bought sketchbook and that white expanse feels too daunting to kind of tackle because it's quite pristine, and sometimes we can get a bit precious about our sketchbooks, then sometimes a junk journal might be a good option for you, because that mixture of textures and colours and sizes and the fact that it's made out of old bits of paper kind of takes the preciousness away from a book. So sometimes pages feel a little bit easier to tackle when they've already got something on them. So I'm going to go through now how you can really, really quickly make one of those, and then I'm going to cover what sort of stuff you can do in your journal before you leave for your trip, ready for some sketching when you're away. So you just need a few materials to get started with making a junk journal of your own. It's a good idea if you are a bit of a hoarder like me. I've got a little really small stack of drawers that sort of slide into a frame, and in each different drawer I have different collected papers. So in this drawer in particular I have lots of collected papers. There's old maps and dressmaking patterns and various bits and bobs in there that I can go to as a kind of paper drawer when I need some resources and just need to dig about and get some creative papers ready for something like this. So you need a piece of to get started with your journal, you need a piece of card. Now I've just got an Ordnance Survey map cover, which actually folds quite nicely into a little square. I got my idea from this one that Yvette made. Okay, and then just a selection of papers, and there can be anything. I've just picked up a few sheets today because I'm kind of working from home and I'm not in the studio where I've got more materials at my disposal. But I'm just going to show you with these few sheets here, you can make a mini book in its most simplest form. So what I would start doing with any collected papers that you've got is just to fold them in half first of all. So you end up with a pile of folded papers. They'll probably all be different shapes and sizes, but that's fine. I've even got some sort of a scrap of handmade paper here. I'm not sure if I'm going to actually fold this one. I might trim it down just a little bit. You can see already just with making this that I'm less precious about it because I'm using scraps of paper, and I think that's where a junk journal comes in handy if you're a little bit unsure or shy about using a sketchbook, or you sort of lay a sketchbook out on a table with all your art equipment and then you just don't know where to get started. It's a really good way to start with a junk journal because you can put junk mail in it that comes through the post, you can put paper doilies in it, you can use all paper bags in them. Anything that comes to mind that you could paint or draw on can go into your journal. Once you've folded your papers in half, just nest them like that, one into the other. I'm going to put my funny little bit of handmade paper in the middle because it's a little bit flappy. And then I'm going to put my cover around that. Now if you've got a bulldog clip, that's a really handy thing to have at the moment, and you can clip all of that together. If your work isn't too thick, you can just go around with a pair of scissors. As I say, this is the most basic rudimentary kind of junk journal you can make, but it's a good way just to get started. And just trim those edges down. If you have a bulldog clip, that's great to keep things in place. If you've got loads of papers and you can't cut through them, if you've got a cutting mat and a craft knife, you could do the same as I've just done there with a ruler and a craft knife. So this basically makes the most simple sort of bound journal that you can get. So if you open it up back to the middle page and then just get a piece of ribbon or a piece of twine, and you can just tie it on the spine there in a double knot. I've just got a bit of ribbon here today. You can pierce through the spine with needle and thread. So you could get a needle and thread and you could just do a simple stitch in the middle here and then tie through the back on the spine, and that would mean that there was no movement at all in the pages. That's what I've done with this one here. You can see if I hold that up, there's just one stitch there, and I actually tied it in the centre. My centre page was used for Christmas journal and prompts, so it's actually covered up with more collage now. But that was just 2 holes punched in there. Thread the needle through all the pieces of paper and tie them in the centre page. And if you do look on YouTube, you can find loads more bookbinding techniques to make much more secure spines. But that's kind of in its most basic form. You can very, very quickly make a little junk journal. And it's got lots of pages in from just those 4 leaves of paper that I folded in 2. And already you've got a different array of papers that you could use. But before I set off, so I want to prepare a few grounds in the sketchbook. Now I'm going to use a shop bought sketchbook this time because I did buy this last year. I do have a habit of hoarding sketchbooks, and it's about time it got used. It's a really nice little one that I picked up in London, and it sort of opens really flat as well. So if you draw on it, you can draw right across that spiral, right across the middle pages there. Excuse me. But it is very white, and I get that fear of the white page. Or still after years of working in sketchbooks, I still get a bit scared off by a white page. So before I go, I'll lay some grounds. And I spent about 10 minutes last night just clagging papers into this sketchbook, and it just breaks up that white. It leaves plenty of space for me to draw and collage and write, but just breaking up that white space makes it a little bit easier to tackle. So there's bits of book pages in there. There's actually old tickets. I was sorting out things in I had like a little wallet for going on holiday, and it was full of old tickets. So I was sorting those out because it's been a few years since we've been on holiday. And I just picked up the bits and bobs that were in there and thought I'd use those to collage a travel journal for this year. Bits of brown paper, stamps, and it really is tear, stick, tear, stick. Don't think too much about it. It's just tiny little arrangements. You don't want to get too bogged down in this bit because this is just laying a ground for something else. You don't really want to get too bogged down in sketchbook in any way. It should just be enjoyable, and not every page will be perfect. Not every page will be really busy. Every page should be different. But I think we need it's sort of remembering that sketchbooks don't have to be complete works of art. Every page does not have to be a resolved piece. They are there to kind of experiment and record and play and enjoy. You can see there even just scribbly pages that I've doodled and loosened up and done warm-up exercises have been torn up, stuck in the book. I've got an envelope there. You never know, I might pick up some nice tickets abroad or some interesting papers, so I can store things in that. And this is just all stuck in with Pritt Stick, and as I say, it took me about 10 or 15 minutes. Just sat at the kitchen table last night. Just really quick bits of like old maps, things I could find in that little pile of collected papers. You could use paper bags, flyers that come to the door, all sorts. Just little bits and bobs, really, really straightforward and simple. So it is just a case of not being too precious about it, tearing things up and putting them down. Now, the thing you might want to do, I'm quite a fan of using white emulsion in my work, and I don't want to take a jar of white emulsion with me on holiday. It's just too big and heavy and cumbersome. But what I can do, I don't have a brush with me here, I don't think. What I can do is, let me just go back to a page that I've prepped, is I can dollop some down on a page that I've prepped a little bit, and just using something like a piece of cardboard or an old store card, just push some emulsion around the page really, really quickly. Don't think too much on it, and you just lay in grounds like that. You can lay a few grounds in your book before you go away. I've still got plenty of white pages at the back. I won't finish all of this, and I won't put the pressure on myself to finish all of this, but what I would like to do is just enjoy a little bit of time while I'm away, sketching and recording the things I've done in the day. So it's a really nice idea just to prepare a few grounds in your book before you go, without putting too much thought into what goes onto them. You're just breaking up that one block of colour, whether it's brown or white or coloured papers in a shopboard sketchbook. It's just breaking up that single expanse of colour. So what do you take with you? I suppose it depends on where you're going. You could be journaling from home, you could be sketching abroad, you could be, you could be limited by things you can carry, depending on how you're travelling to a destination perhaps. We tend to go in the car because we camp, so I have a little bit of leeway with what I can pack, but I still quite like to pack light. So the things I take are my book with some pre-prepared grounds in it. Bearing in mind, I don't know what these are going to become. It's just clagged in. That's the best word for it. Put the stuff in so you can work something on top of those grounds. A nice little envelope of papers is a nice idea, although you can collect papers when you're on maybe away on a trip, so you might collect like flyers and tickets, sort of in napkins that have been printed with like a restaurant logo perhaps. I've just got a few little old bits there which might come useful for collage. Drawing material, I like to keep it simple, so I've got a really old graphite stick that's broken in two. I've got a white pencil, I've got a black fine liner. Be careful where using rollerball fine liners on wet media, because sometimes they can just break and then halfway through your holiday you don't want to be without a pen. So they tend to work best on things that aren't too wet. Pencil sharpener, brush. I've got a few oil pastels and my watercolour pencils. I've got watercolour paints here that I like to take with me, but I don't know if I'll take them this year because I've got pencils. I don't know, but they're pretty compact, so they're not a big thing to have to take with me. I've got a water spray, so I can work on wet grounds, or I can work on something and then spray it wet. A glue stick, and then I have a date stamp, and this was something I picked up out of a Shelley Rhodes book, and it's a really nice idea. When you're sketchbooking, you can date stamp your page, which is just a really nice way of recording kind of like the place you were at a certain time as well. I'm not always a massive fan of glue sticks because I find that it's not the strongest glue in the world. However, when you're doing a travel sketchbook, it's a really good idea to take one with you because it's not wet, it doesn't require spreaders, it doesn't require cleaning up after it, and it's pretty quick to use, and it's neat and it's light and small, so it's a pretty good one for travelling. I've also put an ink pad out, which I don't know if I would take with me, but what I did want to mention, which I didn't mention in the last snippet of the video, is if you're preparing grounds before you go, ink pads can be a good way if you just rub them on the edge of your page to sort of distress or age pages. So sometimes you can take them with you. Maybe if you've got alphabet stamps and you want to stamp some text into your sketchbook, they're a nice thing to take, but they're also a nice thing just to add some texture into your book with. When they're a bit older and drier, they work really well for this sort of texture. So yeah, might not take that with me, but that's a nice little one to a nice little addition for your sketchbook. So yeah, travelling light, that's the aim of the game. Lastly is when you're there. So what do you do when you're there? Because quite often the problem with sketchbooks is we get the sketchbook out, we get a nice glass of wine perhaps after a nice day out, and we sit at a table with all of our equipment around us and think, what on earth do I do in this sketchbook? Sometimes getting those grounds laid down first of all is a good way to get rid of that fear, because you don't have that pristine white page looking at you, sort of daring you to put something perfect on it. But yeah, sort of what do you do? So don't put the pressure on yourself to make every page a perfect drawing, okay? Some pages could be writing about your day. This one here, as I said before, I did this when I had two very small children, and it was becoming very quickly apparent that I wasn't going to get to do any sketchbook work. But, you know, just sticking down some of the tickets and tags and flyers that you might have found through the day. You could write about your day, so text could form part of the page, as well as the found objects, as I mentioned, tickets and things, restaurant napkins, writing about not just what you did, but perhaps like the place that you were at, or how a place made you feel, you know, maybe what the light was like, if you've seen a really lovely vista or view. And some pages could be about drawing as well, but they could be quick drawings. They could be really quick, you know, sort of drawings where you're just looking at washes of colour or bands of colour in a landscape, perhaps. These ones were done in about 20 seconds, I think up in Northumberland. But there's something, as scribbly as they are, there's something abstract about them that suggests a landscape. And, you know, you could come back to this and add colour to it, later on. And that's where those coloured media in your kit comes in as well, the pencils and whatnot that we've packed. And that's the other thing, you can work back from photographs. So we've got digital devices these days. So take a photograph through the day and then come back and perhaps work back from a photograph. But don't worry about creating a perfect drawing. Don't always work on the first page either. Sometimes when you open up a book and you get to the first page, you think this has to be perfect because it's the opener. It's the first page you see when you open your book. So if you're feeling that pressure, just open it randomly, 3 or 4 pages in, and just get started. And you can work back and work around it either side. Sketchbooks don't have to be worked in chronological order. This one here, you can sort of see there's little bits of maps in here. There's my date stamp that I was talking about before. It adds a nice little dimension to the page. Some of these I don't think I actually drew on location. I think I might have done this sort of sketching here with just a black pen on location, and it's very quick. I almost didn't lift the pen from the page. But some of the other pages, like this one here, I took a photograph and I came back and I worked at home from the photograph, and so I could just work into it a bit further. In this page here, I did a rubbing of something nearby. So if you've got some pastels or crayons and you find interesting textures on drain covers or walls, these are actually headstones in an old cemetery at Tynemouth Priory. I sort of did this drawing on location and then came home and added the collage bits around it and added some text and stamped the date. So you can sort of add things while you're out and about. If you take your book with you, you can bring things home or back to, you know, wherever you're staying, perhaps if you're working away from home. And you can work in them afterwards with the things you've collected, and you can add to drawings that you might have done on site. This one here was some cow parsley, but again, I didn't do that one, sat in the field. I think I did this one sat on location, then I came back and did another one with greys and whites on a dark purple page. So, you know, every page is quite different really, and so there's actually a drawing behind this drawing here that didn't go very well, so I just drew on top of it. And I think it's having that sort of that feeling of not being too precious about a book. You know, if a drawing doesn't work, move on or just draw over it. It's not there to be painful. It's supposed to be a nice experience. This one was much more wishy-washy colours. Really just exploring those bands of colours in a landscape on a local beach. And I think I used a photograph for that one. So that was, I was out with the kids through the day and I couldn't sit still for long enough to do 10 minutes of drawing. So I take a photograph and come back at the end of the day and work from it then. But you can see the difference. I get just as much joy doing this as I do doing this kind of book. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. I think that's the really important thing to remember. There's no kind of set way, and your book will look like your book. It shouldn't look like anybody else's book. It's nice to kind of mess on in a sketchbook and find your own style. The other thing I was going to mention as well was that if you collect things, they can be pressed in your sketchbook. Just looking at my little list of notes of things to remember to mention in this video. So yeah, we've got little leaves, and there's actually leaf ribbons underneath that. And then later on in the book, there's some pressed flowers, which have actually managed all right. They've been in there about 6 years now. So you can collect and you can collage and you can write and you can draw. And the main thing is to enjoy. I'm just going to flick through this one here, which was based on a Northumberland beach. It's a concertina sketchbook. And I had the sketchbook for you with this one. It was a present off from a friend, and it was so lovely that I think I had it for 6 months before I decided to work in it, because I got the sketchbook fear. So that's a totally normal thing, to have a sketchbook and be too, worried about working in it in case you don't make it look lovely. But my advice would be, decide on which book you're going to use, prepare some grounds, take a limited kit with you so you're not too, overwhelmed by lots of different equipment, and just enjoy gathering. Stick things down, don't be too precious about them. Stick in the souvenirs that you find, the little tickets, the sort of receipts, leaves, flowers, all that sort of things that you collect maybe when you're on a trip or a day out. bring them back, stick them in, work from photographs. Sometimes just explore colour, it doesn't have to be a drawing. That one there, I don't think I lifted my pencil from the page. It was really quick. And I wasn't looking at it when I drew it, I was looking at this photograph here. So there's lots of different ways to draw. That's just lots of papers of photographs cut up to make the rocks that my family was standing on. Just very, very quick studies. Some take longer than others, some are super quick. Some are just writing, some is just sort of paint that's been splattered on and then pulled across with a piece of cardboard. All very different pages, some quicker than others, some I like more than others, but that's fine. But the main thing is, I guess really, is to just enjoy. So I hope you found this video useful. I think it's a little bit longer than I intended it to be, but hopefully you've stuck with me till the end, and if you have, thank you very much. And if you do create a travel sketchbook, I really hope you enjoy it, and I hope this video has helped to maybe take the fear out of it a little bit.